first day of spring. This is also my grandfather's would-be, if he was still alive, 106th birthday. He died in 2007. My grandfather was born in a town called Batoche, and Batoche was the town that Louis Riel was finally captured, where he fought the Red River Rebellion. Or if you're on the British Commonwealth side, then maybe you might call it the Red River Massacre. I look up to Louis Riel big time, and to be honest, I looked up to my grandpa also. I felt a little sorry for my grandfather because he'd had his blood kind of beaten out of him. He was born right up in Cree area, and his background, for most of my life I didn't know that he had any native in him at all, because he was a self-hating Métis, and he I don't know how much native blood he had in him, and who's counting, and who gets to decide how much is enough. But this is my grandfather here. Let's try not to get the light in there. There we go. So this is my grandmother, Mary, and grandfather, Joseph. And Mary has Austrian and yeah, mostly Austrian and German blood, I believe. And my grandfather is French and native. And there could be other things. Like I said, he was part of the Great Reset that happened around this time that Louis Riel was hung. So there's always freedom fighters that are fighting right at the end, and they usually end up, if they lose the battle, they usually end up hung or just disappeared. And that's like the song, redemption song, is like, how long shall we sit by and watch them kill all our prophets? Well, Louis Riel was a prophet, and people can believe that or not, but he did say back when he was hung, which is 100 years before I was born, that my people will sleep for 100 years, but then awake. Sorry, my people will sleep for 100 years, but when they wake, it will be the artist who gives them their spirit back. And I look at that, and Rastafari hit really hard in the 80s, especially like 85, especially in Canada and stuff. So this is that to me was that's a prophecy that's come true, and our spirit did start coming back. A lot of us that were infiltrated by Rastafari and other conscious lyrics that taught people about the good fight between good and evil, like and the Rastafari was they were just wanted to live outside in the Babylon, grow their own food and have their own spirituality, but and make their music. But their music wasn't even allowed to be played in Jamaica. It played around the world before it would played in Jamaica, because of the system that they had that was fighting against these roots people, and that's the natives against the British Commonwealth also, right? But not just the natives. We have to remember that like my last name, the earliest I could find it was a French was in Quebec, and a fisherman in the early 1700s. But our names change, and there's all this stuff that happened in the 1800s that we don't really understand, because if you look at all the wars that were fought, and they don't really talk about they just talk about like the Canada winning the war against the US in the War of 1812, and you don't really hear about the ins and outs of it. But like I have this book, and they didn't burn all the books, but this book, like, starts to portray a bunch of stuff. It's a really good book, but this is where you can see them kind of like, I like this picture because it isn't a picture of Tecumseh, but Tecumseh, this is actually for the States, I guess, like, and this is like around 1809 to 1893, so this is just portraying like the things that were happening. Well, Tecumseh, I'll come back to Louis Riel because that's part of this whole thing. It's this civil war that's been going on since 1812, and people thought that it was Canada against the U.S. Well, it was actually British that came over and used their sociopathic tactics to trick the natives and fight next to the natives against the U.S. And what they said was that they would give their land, and they would live separately on the same land, the British and the natives, and if they fought together against the U.S. And they won against the U.S., but guess who didn't get their land? Yeah, well, there you go. And Tecumseh, so that's where I show this picture here, because you can see like the one, there's people that are kind of like talking for the Commonwealth, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I don't know if I can trust anybody that was tricked by the Commonwealth. Well, to be honest, you're given a two-edged sword, and when they say I'll help you against them, and they have no choice because they lose otherwise, then they have to trust these people. And so Tecumseh said something that was very powerful before he went off to battle, and he says, "Our spirit is in the hands of the Great Spirit. We are determined to defend our land, and if it be to his will, we wish to leave our bones upon them." And he went off to war, and he left his bones upon them. And that's why I think about these names that not a lot of people know about, and Louis Riel even, it blows my mind how little amount of people know Louis Riel, and that was like one of our last big freedom fighters. And they witch hunted him also. They had him locked away for 2 years in an insane asylum, and he spent the whole time writing spiritual poetry and philosophy. And when he came out, he fought that Red River Rebellion, and after when they caught him, they hung him in Regina, I believe it was, and he gave one of the most sophisticated legal speeches at the courtroom. It was like an hour long. It was I didn't read or know this speech myself, but he was an ultra intellectual, and he was involved with government and involved with spirituality, and he at one point was confused with the collective conscious, or what some would say, or he's just living through an archetypal story, but he thought he was King David, and he started calling himself a Jew, and these were part of the things that made people worried, and they witch hunted him. But people don't understand the psychology of archetypal stories, because he actually did live the same story as King David, where he had to run out of the country and hide because the governing body in that country was hunting him down because they knew how dangerous he was to their plans. And he came back, and he did fight a battle against Goliath. He didn't end up being king after, and he died, but he lived the archetypal hero's journey. And I look at my grandfather, and so that right there was a great reset happened right there. That was when we don't know where our culture came from, and that's where people are so like, look what happened to the natives. Yes, and it's definitely fresh wounds are really important. However, you look at Louis Riel, which may have been at the most an 8th native, but he fought for the natives just like they were 100% blood, because they were culturally in the same lineage. And we have to know that that this is our fight now. We're continuing on that fight right now against the British and other sadistic dominating forces. Because we have to know that one of the most expensive things in our life is energy. And guess who owns our river? The British. right? They flooded a farmland the size of Texas in Canada and the US, and they're selling us the water from that. And they give us a measly bit of money through Columbia Basin Trust to help us with our businesses so we can buy food instead of grow it ourselves. Well, you know, we need to get rid of these British and take back our river. And I think the Civil War is still happening, and we might as well take care of this now while all of this other shit is falling apart. They can't fight on all fronts. So, you know, my grandpa was part of the Great Reset. He, deep down inside of him, he knew he was Native, but he was racist towards Natives, and his culture taught him that. And this is what happens when you put kids in schools and they and put propaganda out there against bloodlines like Natives. Then you have people like my grandfather hating on his own blood and making people like myself not even know what my lineage is. And I'll be honest, when I was young, I went through the hate towards Natives also because it rubbed off on me from my grandfather. I quickly shrugged that off me because it didn't feel well. It was just, this is how dangerous it is when we're passing down trauma. So I believe now that just like the end time when Akhenaten reset the world. He in Egypt at the time there was many cultures and lots of things working, and what he did is he said no. He tore down all their shrines and all the ways that they did things, and said now you follow me, right? And he built this city, and a ton of people followed him because they're like, wow, this guy's the new god, right? And does that sound like somebody like, you know, the World Economic Forum or Bill Gates, all these people that they're like talking about making super cities for people, right? And like new smart cities and all that, right? Well, this story happened before, and last time that city lasted 30 years and then was abandoned, and they went into a golden age of unity where people came together. So that's where we are again in time. Now we unite against the dark forces that are trying to reset us. No, we're going to keep some traditions, the really important ones, and we're going to slowly reset together on the ground here, starting with our communities and our families and ourselves. So happy 106th birthday, Grandpa. I have a thought that is really important, that you know, time moves like this, and you could just imagine like the sun is always coming down here, right? So this could be where in time we are, right? Well, as this thing turns, we have the masculine and the feminine, and there's always the time when it has to give up the sun and go into the darkness. So as time turns, we want to know that back in the 50s and before that, we had the masculine mostly in the sun, right? And that's where we had all the witch hunts against women, and when we had you know, people like my grandfather once called my grandmother into the insane asylum because she was driving him crazy, right? Driving him crazy, and then he decided to call her crazy, right? Well, then that time turned, and then the 60s and 70s came along, and then all the feminist movement came in, and we needed the equality movement. I would have chose a different name than feminism, but the equality movement came in, and not only but what happened is it went like this, okay? The pendulum swung. It wasn't like we didn't stop here in the middle where we were supposed to be, right? And tried it and I know that we can't really do that. Like, it's always going to be a pendulum swinging, or else there's no life. But this is where we should be in our hearts all the time. And sometimes we should be here, sometimes we should be here. But when you have an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The pendulum swings. And then now I believe that we've had this happen to our culture since the 70s, and that's the masculine being thrown underground and the feminine getting the light, and that's how the pendulum swings. However, for us to win this battle, and I'm talking a spiritual battle and a moral battle and a community building battle, we have to settle in the center and know that we can do this with time. Whenever we're needed in the masculine, we can slide over here, and whenever we're needed in the feminine, we can slide over here, and we can try to keep this thing planted in the ground so both are getting light. And I don't want us to relive history like my grandpa and grandma had to. And there's a song on my SoundCloud called 64 Years Later, and I wrote it back in 2007 for my grandpa's funeral. So if you want to have a listen to that, that tells a little bit about our family. And yeah, anyways, happy first day of spring, and happy birthday, Joseph Bonin. I know you're giving me energy and helping me out through this. Bye.